Origins of Angel. The Golden Age hero that had his debut in Marvel Comics 1 from Timely Comics. A doctor that became a costumed detective who had the mystic cape of Mercury that allowed him to fly. Young Thomas Halloway was raised in the empty cell block of a prison where his father was warden. There, he was rigorously educated in near solitude. He read every book available in the prison library and learned many arcane things from the prison's inmates. When he reached adulthood, he became a doctor and never tired of his thirst for further knowledge. Thomas's life changed in 1938. He was caring for an elderly man, who had he diagnosed as suffering from some kind of senile delirium. Despite this, he enjoyed hearing the old man's wild tales of how he had traveled to the future and experienced the age of fantastic heroes that was still to come. It was not until after the man passed away in his sleep that Thomas realized who he had been talking to all this time. It was the Mad Hawk, otherwise known as the Two-Gun Kid from the westerns he read as a child. Halloway was left with Hawk's famous mask and his two guns as a gift, with a note saying it was from one hero to another. Thomas would not understand what this meant until later. Thomas was present when the original Human Torch Jim Hammond broke free from his concrete prison and accidentally set fire to New York City. Riots and looting ensued all around him, and he found himself leaping into action without thinking. He did what he could to protect who he could. When it was all over, he returned home to reflect on Mad Hawk's final message to him. Rise of the Angel. Using Mad Hawk's mask, Thomas fashioned his own costumed identity. He based the costume off a nickname he earned while living in prison, the Angel. He earned this name by proving the innocence of a man who was on death row. He was surprised to see other costumed heroes starting to appear, but welcomed it so much that he found himself feeling a kinship with the other costumed heroes. When he found out that the Phantom Bullet had been killed, he mourned as though he had lost a brother. Thomas started to investigate the hero's death, but before he found out that the Phantom Bullet's death was caused by Nazi spies infiltrating America, another hero and friend known as the Ferret was killed by the same Nazi spy ring. Birth of the Captain. While on the same trail of Nazi spies, Thomas witnessed and met Captain America, who was also investigating the same Nazi ring. Hero of the Golden Age. Halloway worked with government intelligence to counter the operations of Axis spies during World War II. At some point, he abandoned the mask and allowed his identity to be publicly known. He would eventually leave the home front along with other costume heroes to aid in the final war effort to bring down the Third Reich. At one point Halloway would save a 4,000-year-old lady, and was giving the Cape of Mercury as an award for the deed. His activities did not end with World War II. Halloway would join a band of heroes called the All Winners Squad and continued crime fighting for years. Thomas would face such villains as the Armless Tiger and Alexander Bont. Eventually he then joins with other World War II heroes to form the V Battalion to stop dictatorships and future threats. Halloway was a founding member of their Penance Council, but he left the group after some years to retire from action. His retirement was due to an innocent bystander being killed while he was on a solo mission. Scourge of the Underworld. For reasons unknown, Halloway's ideals and views of justice took a harsh turn in his old age. He used his accumulated wealth and influence to found a secret organization dedicated to the execution of criminals under the guise of Scourge. He oversaw a whole legion of assassins, who all pretended to be this one masked man. After years in this pursuit, the truth about Scourge and his own involvement were uncovered by U.S. Agent. However, there was no evidence for U.S. Agent to actually have Halloway convicted of anything to do with Scourge, and so he went free. 2 Scourges later appeared, but neither of these men had anything to do with Thomas Halloway. This fact would suggest he did not rebuild his Scourge organization after being discovered by U.S. Agent. Passing the mantle. Holloway seems to have passed away and requested that Captain America give his grandson Jason Holloway the same box that Matt Hawk, the two-gun kid, left him. It contained the 2 original guns that were used by the Angel, and the two-gun kid before him. Simon Holloway. He is the brother of Thomas, who also assumed the Angel identity as a substitute for his brother. He later would become homeless and was murdered by Zeitgeist. This could be speculated as the reason Thomas started the Scourge organization. Alternate realities. X-Men Noir. Tom Holloway grew up in a detention center where he learned from the convicts. The list includes Sean Cassidy and Kane Marco. Holloway claimed to be investigating the murder of Jean Grey. She was slashed to death and the police refused to investigate. He speaks to Remy, who explains that she tried to run scams from his club. He rescues a young woman when leaving from Remy's muscle, Bishop. Holloway puts Bishop's face through a car window. The young woman turns out to be Wanda Magnus, the daughter of Chief of Detectives. They go get drinks. He later speaks to Xavier. Xavier can't talk too much but writes the name Anne-Marie Rankin on a magazine. He goes to the X-Men's home and is attacked by 3 of the former detainees, Cyclops, Iceman, and McCoy. He claims that he is on their side, to which Scott says, "We're the X-Men, nobody is on our side." He then fires. The bullet was merely a warning shot, but the Angel was able to get their attention at the mention of Jean. They form an alliance. Later, he seeks Anne-Marie, and saves her from 2 of the Brotherhood. She stays at his home. Later they made love after he tried to explain why he wore his costume. The Angel and the X-Men are able to save Eunice from being murdered by Peter Magnus, but a stray bullet destroys a nearby blimp. The Angel lives, but Peter dies from the fall. Later when they are talking to Eunice, Magnus busts in with his Brotherhood and both die along with Iceman. Anne-Marie is found on the roof after killing Magnus. The Angel catches her and makes her admit that she is really Jean and that she killed Anne-Marie for her inheritance. The Angel reveals that he is Tom's twin brother Robert and kills Jean by taking her over the building.